Not having Nyzier this season, that's a big blow for Wisconsin. How big? Let's talk about it. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate you hanging out, listening now, later, however you get it. Humbled to have you here. Again, time's the most important thing any of us have, and you're choosing to spend a little bit of it here. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Today's episode, we're talking about Nyzier Fourqurean, the decision, how big of a blow this potentially is for Wisconsin, plus a 2026 defensive back decommits. Are we worried about recruiting? What are we doing here? I did put this in Discord and a couple other places. So if people want to jump on the show, feel free. Jump on the show. Let us know how you're feeling about this stuff. I'll put that link in the chat as well. Let's start with Nyzier. I think Nyzier is obviously the bigger thing. Zachary Taylor also decommitted. He was the 2026 safety coming out of Texas. But let's start with Nyzier. There's three things I want to hit with Nyzier. Three things I want to hit. I want to hit him as a person. I want to hit my thoughts on this decision. And then I want to hit what's next for the Badgers. Let's start with him as a person. He is an elite dude. He is again, from everybody I've talked about, it's not like him and I have a great personal relationship, obviously, but I've talked to him a little bit in a spring practice. But talking to the coaches and teammates around him, he is a incredibly easy guy to root for. High character player, has done all the right things, works really hard. Like, he's the type of person, he's the type of human being you root for, just in general in life, outside of football, outside of any other context. You root for good people to do good things. He's a good person, right? So what I'm about to say is nothing to do with him as a person. I kind of feel like it's probably the right decision. And again, I'm not a lawyer, but basically what happened is his appeal was overturned. His injunction was overturned. And now it will go back. So there's still like this tiny thread of a possibility. So now it goes back to the NCAA, which will reconsider its denial of his waiver request. So it's going to go back into the NCAA. It sounds like it's going to go back into the NCAA's pocket. That's probably not going to go well for Nyzier. This is probably it. Again, I want to leave open that shred of possibility because this is not a completely closed door, but it feels very likely that he will not be on the Wisconsin Badgers football team this upcoming season. This is where I want to pause. It feels to me like there needs to be some eligibility restrictions. And I understand that the NCAA has been gray in this area. I understand that they've created waivers and situations for other players that have played 6 years, 7 years. But ultimately, there has to be some limits. And I feel like if Nyzier was a defensive back on Iowa or Minnesota or Illinois or any other school, I don't think Wisconsin fans would be like, yeah, of course he should get another year because his Division II year shouldn't count, which was a bit of the crux of the argument for Nyzier Fourqurean. He also had a situation where his father had, he had immediate hardship and there were issues that really hurt him, and he played through some stuff that maybe shouldn't have played through. But ultimately, there does have to be some eligibility requirements, in my opinion. And again, I think Nyzier's an incredible dude, and I don't think he got the fairest shake at all times. I also understand the decision to try to limit some eligibility. Otherwise, players will just never leave. And I don't know if that's what people want. Eventually, I think there will be an antitrust exemption for college football. There will be contracts and situations. And Badger South is in the queue. We're going to throw Badger South into this show too and see what his thoughts are. So I love Nyzier. He would have made the Badgers better this year. I understand this decision, and I think there's merit in limiting eligibility. And then the impact on the team. We're going to get into that next, man. Badger South, if you're there, I'm going to jump you on the show. What's up, dude? You're muted right now. Come off mute and let me know where you're at on this one. He's in stunned silence as Badger South still sits muted. We'll just leave you up there, man. When you come off mute, jump in. So what's next for the Badgers, right? What is next for Wisconsin? What's next for Wisconsin is you just lost a starting corner from a spot that was already from the offseason. If you remember, you lost a bunch of guys that you thought could have factored into this depth chart potentially. And now you lost your starting corner. And I'll tell you this, I think Nyzier was better than Rico last year. I think Rico is a really, really good corner. I think Nyzier was probably our best cornerback last year. Like, you have to replace that now. That's a big deal. that's a massive hit to this defense that, from a depth chart standpoint, and Badger South dropped off, man. If you're having issues, pop back in here. Yeah, it's a big deal to the depth chart. What happens next? I think Amelia Agard steps up. Deone Hill steps up. I think Agard, to me, if I'm going to feel better if he can take that spot. I'm very high on Emilio Agard. He had pedigree coming out of high school, really strong offer list, tactically really good as a corner. Lacks a little bit of the ideal measurables, but I think he's your starter. And I think if you have an Emilio Agard, Ricardo Holman starting duo, and I'll pause there because if you're in the chat, Emilio Agard, Rico Holman is at least as good as a lot of Badger combos that they've had, right? On good defenses, you've had combos where Alexander Smith has played big roles, where I'm blanking on some past Badger cornerbacks that weren't elite guys, but have been part of really good defenses. The Badgers have had really good defenses with cornerback rooms as good as, or if not as good as, Emilio Agard and Rico Holman. So you can be okay there if the pass rush comes. But where you run into issues is depth. What happens if somebody gets hurt? What happens if you lose another guy? Because now you're really without Nyzier in there. You're really starting to rely on some young cats. And I like some of those dudes, but depth matters in college football. That's why, that's why a lot of the best teams are the best teams. It's not always that front line. For many years, Wisconsin's frontline starters could match up with just about anybody, but then they would lose a guy, lose another guy. And suddenly your backup is not a 4-star backup like at Ohio State or Penn State or Notre Dame. So depth is a big part of this. Losing Nyzier Fourqurean is a big impact into that depth chart. Let's get some comments in here. We got a bunch of people in here already. Appreciate y'all. Coach Mac, good friend of the show, says, yeah, I said this was going to happen at the first hearing. Things didn't sound good, yet people were saying I didn't know what I was talking about. Not a legal expert, but I can read people. Yeah, you were all over that, man. Zach Bartz, another really good friend of the show. I think I'm going to get a show with Zach coming up, which I'm really excited about. This and the Taylor flip to TCU news sucks. Would like to see the staff fight hard to get a flip or two. Yeah, we're going to get into Zachary Taylor coming up on the next one, but this is kind of a double whammy to that defensive back room. You lost a guy for this year and you lost a guy for upcoming seasons. They're going to have to add some more bodies here. Right now, you have Carson Elams in that room. You did add to the safety class last year, a couple guys that I really like with Grant Dean and Luke Emmerich, but you got to add every year. Like, you have to reload every year. Melody Mantai says, we quickly went from 6-6 to 4-8. Yes, losing Fourqurean cost us at least 2 games, blow after blow. That's a hot take. And I love hot takes. Family Mantai's in the chats all the time, so I appreciate him. Yeah, I listen, here's the thing. We're playing some really good physical receiving cores this year. Obviously, we know about Ryan Williams at Alabama. We know about Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State. Or Oregon's going to put dudes out there. There's going to be a lot of teams that are going to test the boundaries of this Wisconsin defense. And I do think losing Fourqurean could cost you a game. I do believe that. I don't know about 2, because quite frankly, you're probably losing those really tough games with or without Nyzier Fourqurean. We're not talking about losing Jamar Fletcher, that caliber of player, but we are talking about losing a really physical corner. Let's talk specifically about what Nyzier brings to the defense. Nyzier is incredibly physical, a great tackler. He's the type of guy that can match up on the boundary, compete at the line of scrimmage, blow up jet screens, receiver screens, can blow up misdirection running plays that get outside the edge, that get outside contain. He is a really physical perimeter player in an era of college football where you need physical perimeter players. You need guys that can tackle in the Big Ten because there's so many big-time athletes. Fourqurean gave you that. He's a really, really physical piece of this defense, reliably sound. Not a burner, but somebody that's fast enough to compete at the short to intermediate route tree. And then in zone, the wingspan and the ability to be physical after the catch are big parts of this as well. He's a good corner. Borderline NFL guy if he's a little faster. That's not easily replaceable. So I don't know if it costs you 2 games, family man, but I can see the argument that losing perhaps your best or at least one of your 2 best corners, it's not ideal. Coach Mac, win ball games. Recruits will come. Winning Mac definitely helps. Definitely helps. Scott says, will the D hold up, Ryan? Is it time to get a new DC? It's not time right now because we're already into this. Let's talk more about will the D hold up next. We got to talk about Zachary Taylor as well coming up next. We're going to take a quick second. A bunch of people in the chat. I'm going to throw a link in there too if anybody wants to jump on. Appreciate you guys. Let's talk how big of a loss is Zachary Taylor. Do we need to start continuing talking about this 2026 class? Is it as good as it should be? We're going to talk about that next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick second for our friends of the show over at FanDuel. Listen, summer sports are in full swing. I love baseball. I'm a Ronald Acuna fan, but whether you're a Brewers fan watching Miz or whatever's going on, baseball's a great opportunity every day to spice it up a little bit with FanDuel. Every day's different starting pitchers, different lineups. It's a great spot, and FanDuel is your spot for all that action. Futures, parlays, teaser spreads, and I've talked about this a lot. You want a place if you're going to do something like this where the payouts are quick, they're efficient. When you win, you want that money. That's the whole point of it, the excitement, and then get that payout for your right picks. FanDuel is phenomenal in that aspect. In the past, I've gambled on other sites. You don't always get that money right away. Sometimes you almost never get it. It feels like you're pulling teeth to get what's yours. FanDuel has got your back on that. They will hook you up. Plus, any type of betting action. If you want some future stuff, it's over there. Parlays, teasers, live in-game betting to continue to spice it up. It's all available over on our great friends over at FanDuel. And right now, new customers can bet $5. And if you get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. /lockedon to get started. Okay, let's talk here. Oh, man alive. Let's talk a little bit about Zachary Taylor. So let's go there. Zachary Taylor, 2026 DB coming out of Texas, committed to the Badgers. He has flipped that commitment to Texas Christian University, TCU. Obviously, they did the obligatory social media post, like, it's the hardest decision ever. I'm going somewhere else. Like, okay. Though those things feel so watered down at this point. I'll start here. We need some mechanism. If you watch the show, when we get commits, we fire up the recruiting cannon. We need like a mechanism to on-fire that, like unload that ammunition, like put the cannon back in the garage, like something, because these flips happen. It's part of recruiting. I said this on one of my shows, so this is not coping. This is not anything like that. I was never the highest. I wasn't the highest guy on Zachary Taylor in the matrix of people. I think the athleticism was there. He was a big-time intangibles guy, ran really well. I didn't love him in short area, and he had some ball skill stuff. Like, I liked him, make no mistake, and I wanted him in this class because he had a lot of intangibles, and I think he could have grown into something. This was not a massive blow to me, akin to if you were to lose a Petit or a Latimer or a Hopkins, something like that. I think those were bigger parts of this class. But still, Taylor's a guy you invested resources in. He's a guy that had a pretty high upside because of his speed and his size. If they came together, you'd really have something there. And it's also a hit because you need bodies. You need people in this recruiting class. You need players in the pipeline, right? And it's not NSD yet, National Signing Day, but it's a loss. This is a loss to the class. I'm not going to sit here and say, no big deal, because if we celebrate recruiting wins and we say, I like this player because of this, and this is what he can bring to the class, and really good job by the staff, then we also got to be intellectually honest and say, when a guy leaves that we liked, a guy leaves that the staff targeted pretty early, that's a loss. It's a loss. And right now, this class is a little top heavy. This class is, I look at it as a couple studs for sure. And who knows how any of these players pan out? We all know this. We've all been around this block enough. Sometimes the 3-star guy 7 years later is the 5-star guy, and the 5-star guy 7 years later is the 1-star guy. But this class is a little top heavy right now. You got Petit, you got Latimer. I would put Hopkins in that class. I like Reeder a lot, that inside linebacker. Wenzel, I think, is a little underrated. Cochran, I like a lot. But that middle tier of this class is a little hollowed out because of some players that we've missed on, some players that have decommitted, and they need to add some bodies there. And they need to hit on some guys to finish out this class, because you can't afford in college football to not continually reload the barrels. You need to continually load. And one thing I've talked about a lot is recruiting is like a factory. It's an assembly line, a Model T. You got to keep the parts flowing. So the mechanics downstream, so the engineers downstream can put those things together. You got to keep that talent flowing downstream. So I'm a little concerned about this 2026 class. I'm going to be honest. I'm a little concerned. It's too early to say it's a failure for sure, but they're going to have to flip some guys. As Zach Bart said, they're going to have to get on some guys. I'm going to throw, by the way, just really quick, if anybody wants to jump in, I'm just going to throw the link in the chat. If anybody wants to jump in on Taylor or Fourqurean specifically, let me get some other comments in here. Yeah, Family Man, Zachary Taylor flips. Can we just start the season already so the offseason blues can stop? I mean, there's always ups and downs in the offseason, right? Taylor, Fourqurean, but couple weeks ago, we were talking about Petit and Latimer. So there are ups and downs. Right now, this was kind of a double gut punch, unfortunately. Adam Pettis says, I was rooting for him, but I don't know the argument. Yeah, so this is really well said, Adam, and kind of where I was at. I was rooting for him, but I don't know that the argument for another year sat well with me. Talking about Nyzier Fourqurean, I think we all would have been happy with him on the roster, for sure. He makes Wisconsin better, and he's a good human being. I'm not going to root against either of those things. I'm not. Selfishly, I'm not. But big picture, if you zoom out, it's just a slippery slope. And maybe that's where we're headed anyway. And maybe that's the right answer anyway. I think a lot of people won't love it, but maybe that's where we're heading anyway, where, eligibility doesn't really matter. Maybe players can stay in college as long as they want, because forcing them out of college with NIL now infringes on their ability to make money if they can't make it to the NFL. And maybe ultimately that's where we're going to get. That's going to be tough for a lot of college football fans to square with, because it really carves out a lot of what the core of the sport has been for so long and what a lot of people love about the sport. So, man, maybe that's where we're heading. See a couple more thoughts here. Evan, what happened? I think we talked about it, but essentially the court appeal, or the court that was reviewing Nyzier Fourqurean's appeal of the NCAA decision, has denied his appeal, if I'm connecting those dots right. Now, it's not over. There's still a chance Nyzier can come back, but it now in the NCAA's kind of back pocket, and we all know how that works, unfortunately. Bo Dragon says they better have better talent than Fourqurean waiting in the wings, or they will be cooked. So they got some young guys in there. Jameer Scott, we like. Washington, we like. I like Kairos Gaines quite a bit. What this does do is this accelerates the timetable on the young guys. Let's talk about that a little bit. I think Kairos Gaines, who I talked about last year, he signed late, and I apologize if you hear my dog barking. He signed late, but he's a big physical corner, kind of a ball hawk. I think he's somebody that can get after it a little bit. He's already played well in spring practice. He's turned some heads. I think this could be a door for a guy like him to play this year, because if you look at what Fourqurean brought to you and what Gaines could bring, their skill sets kind of overlap a little bit. And I talk a lot about, if you're a young player and you want to play early, you almost have to bring something different to the woodshed, to the blacksmith, some different thing that we can mold and use. And he gives you some of that physicality. He's a big corner. He's physical at the line of scrimmage. He'll hit people. So look for Gaines maybe as a surprise player out of this group that could step up and fill some of what Nyzier Fourqurean was going to bring to this defense. Yeah, Zach nails it right here, actually. I like the physical skill set of some of the young guys in the room. They are missing the experience and veteran leadership that Nyzier had, though. I think veteran leadership they'll be okay with. Certainly not dismissing Zach's point. That's a big part of it. But you have Rico in that room, who is a tremendous leader. I can tell you that for a fact. And Paul Haynes, one of the things, we can talk about some of the recruiting questions with Paul Haynes. Lost some guys last year's room. Is there an issue connecting to some players? But Paul Haynes is a leadership type of a cornerback coach. So I think they'll be okay there. But the experience that Nyzier had is irreplaceable. And Zach nails that dead on. Hunter says, I don't think it's that hot of a take, considering that we could lose 2 extra games because Nyzier's not here. I don't know about 2, but I think, yeah, maybe it's a difference in a game. Bo Dragon says, are we talking about the same guy? The defense stunk last year, and Wohler is the only one who made tackles. I think the defense stunk because our front seven could never pressure anybody. I don't think that was a Nyzier thing, Bo. I get it, though, but you run into the risk of throwing out the baby with the bathwater? I never fully wrapped my head around that saying, and I probably should. But you run the risk of not everybody on the defense was bad because the defense wasn't great. And I'll say this, statistically, the defense didn't stink. The defense was, in a broad sense, from points per game to efficiency metrics, it was okay in a lot of those metrics. And Fourqurean played a part in that. Fourqurean was a really good, solid physical corner. And again, let's not oversell it. He's a good, solid physical college corner. But good, solid physical college corners have a role and a spot to play on any defense. And I think you're going to miss that this year. Was he elite? No, he wasn't, because if he was elite, he would have been in the NFL last year. He would have already gone to the draft. So, yeah, there's degrees to this. We're not replacing Jamar Fletcher, like I said. We're not replacing a Nick Nelson. We're not replacing a Ikegwonu. But we also are replacing a starter that I think was the most consistent part of that cornerback room last year. And that's not an easy thing to do at this point. Let's see. Coach Max says, maybe hold the recruiting cannons for National Signing Day. I can't do that. I get too excited. Like, I'm going to celebrate the wins when they happen, but I get that. Maybe for National Signing Day, I do something different. Like, I don't know. I got to fire the cannons when I get the good news, though. Let's see. Zach Bart says, hypothetical situation, say Taylor flipped a month or so ago. Does that change our pursuit and outcome with guys like Combe, Forney, and who could have realistically played together with that news? Yeah, man, possibly. It's a good question. I will say this. I think at times this year, and I could be wrong in this. Listen, I'm not in the room. I'm not the most, I don't know every detail, obviously, about these recruiting battles. I do think at times the staff has played it a little safe in terms of canceling visits because they think they're on someone else, or maybe turning down the pressure on someone because they got someone else. I think in today's era of college football, when recruits are more fluid and more quick to jump, and honestly, let's just be honest, looking out for themselves more than ever, which isn't, listen, that's fine. That we live in a world where a lot of people do that. That's fine. Find the best spot for you. I think college staffs probably have to be a little more ruthless as well. Like we're not going to cancel this other visit until National Sign Day because we're not 100% sure you're going to be locked in. And when you get a guy coming from out of state like Zachary Taylor who talked about, I wasn't expecting to commit there. I think you guys keep the heat on other guys full steam because it's so easy for players to flip nowadays. The off-road to lead programs is easier than ever. And that's a two-way street now. So I think you have to keep the pressure on guys till NSD. I think you have to not cancel visits. There's some players that I think might be in this class if we hadn't canceled those visits. And again, this is just me talking. I'm not reporting anything. I do think maybe Wisconsin has played the nice guy a little too much in this recruiting class, in this recruiting cycle. And I don't know if that you can do that in college football in 2026, 2025. Badger Boardmouth, doesn't kill us losing Taylor, but it sure doesn't help when recruiting is what you're hanging your hat on. It is worrying. Yeah, a point I've made, and B&B backs it up here. And again, good dude. Badger Bournemouth's a great dude. Yeah, the big selling point for this staff has been recruiting to the first couple full cycles here. When you start to struggle, that's something worth monitoring and something worth talking about. By the way, appreciate everybody in here. We got 192 people watching this. Y'all are incredible. Again, humbled. There's a lot of places you could be spending time. And thank you so much for spending a little bit of it here with this community. Appreciate the absolute heck out of all of y'all. I almost said hell, but I don't know if I can say hell on this channel. Now I said it twice, so I probably can. 262 Badger says, I don't hate the decision on Nyzier, but then it's got to be consistent for everyone, every team. Yes, 100%. Dead 100%. And thank you for saying this because this part of it kind of slipped my head. Yes, it can't continue to be gray area here, but no to here, but yes on JUCO, but no to D2. Make it consistent, please. That's all people want. That's all people want. Because that was kind of the argument for Nyzier to come back. It hasn't been consistent. Other players have been granted things that we think shouldn't have been granted. The Diego Pavia, like all these. There was a tight end that played 8 years, probably at Utah or BYU. Yeah, one of those schools out there. But make it consistent. That's all people want. That's all people really care about in most things in life. Consistency, whether it's refereeing, whether it's the NCAA, whether it's going to McDonald's. I just want consistency in my fries. That's all people mostly want out of life is consistency. Consistency in outcomes and decisions that you can't control. And I think he nails it here. Be consistent. Be consistent. We better not see, I'll say this. We better not see a year from now a cornerback at Illinois or Iowa or UCLA or somewhere else in this exact same situation that appeals it and gets to play. That 100%. So thank you for bringing that up, man. Be consistent. Ray Gunn says, I'm sure you're dancing somewhere, says this recruiting class has been disappointing with all the misses, though we will never know exactly how people will develop. This could open spots up for people looking to transfer. Sure. Or flips, like flip season's a real thing. Maybe there'll be more flips coming up because there'll be some spots opened up there. But yeah, it has been disappointing with some of the misses. I think we just got to be intellectually honest. Like, I'm an optimistic guy. People know that. But it would be dishonest for me to come here and say, I think this recruiting class is killing it right now. That's dishonest. They have a couple massive hits. We've talked about them. Full credit. Latimer, Petit. I think Hopkins is a big deal. And there's some mid-tier guys in this class I really like. But I think we're like 57th right now in recruiting rankings. And, we have some big-time targets that we've hit on. But that's got to get better. And there's time for it to get better. But let's also be honest with where we're at right now, which if we want to be where we are, where we're at right now is not good enough. I think that's just honesty. Let's see. Much more comments here. Probably won't be able to get to everybody. Yeah, Miami tight end played like 7 years. Coach Max says, idea for NSD. How about doing a streamathon? Lots of highlight packages put together for commits, maybe pre-recorded interviews. Yeah, so every year, first of all, I love this. I take a day off work for NSD. So because this is not my day job. Every year for every single prospect, I do a show just for that prospect, and I loop in interviews we did with Brian Smith. But I do like the idea of we just may do like a 2-hour stream this year for NSD, and we'll have people pop in and off. We'll have highlight stuff up. I kind of like that. Maybe we'll throw some IPAs on in the mini fridge, and we'll just have a lot of fun with it. I kind of like that idea. Zach says, got to draw the line in the sand. I hate the news as a Badger fan, but it is the right decision. The Cam McCormick type players is getting ridiculous. Yeah, just be consistent. I think we're all in the same boat there. This is bad for Wisconsin. This is a blow. Nyzier's a big deal, but you got to be consistent and you got to draw the line somewhere. All right, we're going to wrap it there. Again, y'all are amazing. Thank you for tuning in. If you're not a part of our Discord, and if you don't know what Discord is, that's cool. It's free. It's a message board. It's a community. We talk about football, basketball, women's hoops, Packers, Brewers, fitness challenges, self-wins, because I don't think as guys, we give ourselves enough credit for the wins we have. So people will come in there and post updates on jobs they've gotten, projects they finished. Like, come join the Discord. Again, it's free. And there's only 2 rules, really. No politics and no gophers. Like, aside from that, it's a great community. Come join that. I would love to keep building that, because I've said this before. I haven't said this in a while. The primary goal for this channel for me has always just been, let's make it better to be a Badger fan. Let's make it more enjoyable to be a Badgers fan. Let's build a community around this, a healthy, honest community where, you don't have people sniping at each other, and they're just good people talking about good things. So come join the Discord if you want to be a part of that. Would love to see some new people there to join the, I think, 1,000 plus that are already there. Yeah, Zach says the Discord's always popping off. Good news, bad news, highs and lows. Yeah, come join the Discord. If nothing else, my favorite part of that is the Self-Wins channel, where people can just share the amazing things that we're crushing in life. Badger Borma says, good show, man. Badger Morales, a great dude. And Coach Max says, I will help you get that NSD stuff together. Let's go. Let's do it, my friend. All right, we're going to wrap it there. Happy weekend, y'all. Again, we'll be back next week. Got a bunch of content lined up as always. I'm coming back from travel, so that's why this Fourqurean show is a little late. Love you guys so much. On Wisconsin, and we will definitely talk later or as any news pops off.